Hello, welcome to this session of Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. My name is Adriana Sanmartin, and today I'm delighted to be representing UNICC, leading provider of digital business solutions to over 70 clients and partner organizations worldwide. Talking Tech is a series celebrating girls and women in tech being recorded around the world. Girls in ICT Day is an international day marked on the fourth Thursday of each April. The objectives of Girls in ICT Day are to help to create a global environment that empowers and encourages girls and young women to consider careers in tech. The Talking Tech series is brought to you by the ITU, UNICC, and the Office of the UN Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, and is in support of Equals, the global partnership for gender and equality in the digital age. To kick this session off, I am excited and honored to have this conversation with Beate Degen, who is an experienced non-executive and board chair with more than 25 years experience in strategy, business development, sustainability, and responsible investment, finance, and risk management on a global level and in the private sector, such as Bayer and EY. She has worked on all continents across several sectors, such as oil and gas, utilities, aerospace, agriculture, nature resources, chemicals, as well as renewables. She has a PhD in economics about responsible care and investments and has a footprint in sustainability for almost 3 decades. Her academic education was focused on mathematics, operations, research, and econometrics. Currently, Beate is holding several non-executive positions. Amongst others, she's the chair of the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries Markets Development Board, a member of the Stakeholder Board of Sherpa, an EU-funded project to develop recommendations for the ethical use of AI, and a stewardship council member of G17 Echo, a leading edge platform providing solutions for SDB measurement. B is also the chair of Emeritus of ITU's Independent Management and Advisory Committee, which is part of the ITU's overall governance. Well, since a more balanced tech sector is something that I'm passionate about and working towards, I'm delighted to now shift to a conversation with Beate Degen.
Thank you very much for this lovely introduction and also providing a bit of an idea what this program is about. And I'm so pleased to meet you. I mean, we've already met a bit before. So lovely to be here tonight. And for you, I think it's morning, right? You're based in New York?
Yes.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to this interview. And please shoot out your questions.
So my first question is, when and how did you get into technology?
Oh, wow. That's already 30 years ago. That was kind of when computers started to show up, I would say, not in a broad sense, even kind of when computers started to become more normal. So I was doing a statistics assignment at university, and for that I needed to learn an application package called SPSS. It's the statistical package for social science. And this was run on one of these really huge machines. And when I mean huge machine, it was a huge machine. It was kind of 1 by 2 meters or stuff like that at the university. And after that, or through that, I got into Gauss and later on Pascal. And then I found a student job at a software company where I learned to code in DOS. Most likely no one even knows about this anymore, but literally I learned to program installation programs for CAE systems and also to install and test them later on. And that propelled me literally overnight into a better paid job and kind of a very regular income for me as a student. And at this time, and not only then, even today, I found this absolutely compelling because it was kind of to me like, wow, this is obviously a skill where I'm getting a quite decent income from. And that was already at the age of 20. So this is, to make a long story short, my start into technology. How does it resonate with you?
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, I would say that I've had a similar experience because I first got into technology through Breakthrough Tech, where I did a program where I created a website using HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. And it was my first time, and I didn't think I'd be able to do it. And it was a 1-week program. So we had to get a lot of stuff done in a very short amount of time, and it was my first time coding, and I was able to create the website, and the website was to help incoming college students connect with current college students to help them, through the college process, questions, concerns, and I didn't think I was going to be able to do it, and I did, and it was, I would say it's something that I'm proud of.
Well, that's super cool. I think you should be proud of it because it's quite an accomplishment if you start right from the beginning. And I would say after a short time, you can already produce something useful and something tangible, yeah, you should be definitely proud of it. Absolutely, well done.
Thank you. So I did want to ask, I know you are chair of several organizations, such as the chair of IFOA's Market Development Board and on the stakeholder board of Sherpa. And I'm curious about what your role entails and what led you to these positions.
Good question, Adriana. So I would say there are a couple of main components what these roles entails. It starts with leadership, then there's a governance part, and then there's something which I would call a senior advisory part. Leadership, of course, means to steer the team. So if you're chairing a board, you definitely have a leadership role to make sure you have the right board composition, you meet the terms of reference, you bring in together this kind of joint perspective of the board, and then through that fulfill your governance role if this is linked to that committee. And by governance, I mean, of course, every board has some terms of reference which help the overall organization to, for example, be compliant, to meet its objective, and especially if it's a regulated area as the IFOA, to make sure you're in alignment with overall regulation. With the Sherpa board, I think it's more on the senior advisory side, which means Sherpa as this quite a very big EU project to look at AI and ethics and smart data information system, is kind of keen to get stakeholder advice. And by stakeholder, they were looking, when they recruited that board, for individuals with a private sector experience, so not necessarily coming from academia, also for journalists and artists. So basically to get a much more holistic picture of differentiate views on AI and what could be relevant for the practical life. So by that, they want to make sure that they do not develop something which is sound from an academic perspective, but which is also, I would say, practical for the private sector, if that makes sense. Now, the second part is probably a little more tricky, what led me into this. So I would say for the IFOA, my, so to speak, USP, my unique selling point, if that's the right language to use here, was on the one hand side, my in-depth understanding of risk models. So this is something which actuaries do within their bread and butter business, what I would say. And on the other hand side, I bring a lot of experience in the corporate sector in developing strategy. And of course, markets development is about strategy and international experience. And I chaired a board before. So this was kind of why I think I was a quite good candidate for that role. And especially they wanted to bring in someone from outside the actuarial field. So that led me into that role. Sherpa was slightly different. They were looking for somebody on the one hand side who, again, had that corporate sector background, and on the other hand side, a holistic understanding about AI. So I'm not an educated AI programmer, though I do have a basic understanding about Python and RapidMiner and kind of predictive analytics. Through the UN, however, I got a very good understanding about what AI means, and also the kind of, I would say, almost do's and don'ts, and something which I would put under the umbrella of AI for good. So what are the pitfalls? What is important when we think about AI and human rights? What's important when we think about AI, for example, in sustainability? What's important when we think about AI and data privacy, your own privacy? And I would say I would have like 8-10 years of, I would say, track record now in that, which allows me to contribute to that committee.
Like the background you gain from, studying tech, and it's useful in any job that you can do, that you can get. And there are a multitude of tech sectors, which is really great. Like for you, it's AI that, I can explore and see which sector is the right one for me.
That sounds good. That you're already considering some sectors. I like that.
Yeah. So I did want to ask if you could share an example, or if there was something you're particularly proud of that you've done in tech.
Oh gosh, that's a good question. In my operations research course at university, I got a very tricky task. I was asked to develop a better algorithm for the traveling salesman algorithm. And I think I'm still absolutely proud that I found a way to do that. So literally the first part was about to find the right, say, programming sequence and the right analytics behind it, and then of course to program it into Gauss. And it's still a miracle to me that I really made it and that it ran. So I'm incredibly proud about this one thing, definitely. And I think the other one is probably a little bit later, referring to my professional life, that I was able to develop one of the first risk return models for the corporate sector. And actually, I also helped another big German DAX 30 company to develop one of it, and they won an international controller prize for this. So I'm really proud of these two things, but I would say the proudest I'm probably of this traveling salesman algorithm I optimized. I think that was my breakthrough moment.
Yeah, that sounds very complicated. I'm not sure. I don't think I would be able to do the same.
But do you have something on your side where you would say that you're particularly excited about when it comes to technology?
There definitely is. I'm very passionate about living more sustainably. And actually, in my first semester of college, I took an English course, and it was about speculative fiction, where we examined several pieces. Because I think speculative fiction is really important in reimagining the world, because we're forced to face a reality that's hard to accept and becoming more and more likely. And for me, there was one piece that really stuck with me, and it was about projections of sea level rise, and how in the future there are lots of engineering limitations for, let's say, a New York seawall that would need to be built for to combat sea level rise, and it would eventually end up trapping sewage and toxins in the city. And I mean, this is like a very far out, very future idea, but entirely possible, which is one of the reasons why I really like speculative fiction, because it makes you think of, these realities that, maybe not for you, but for generations down the line are entirely possible. And While I'm really passionate about, I'm very conscious about my own carbon footprint, and I try to make small life choices that really, change that, like not eating meat, which I haven't done in, I think, 5 years. Being conscious of the plastic I use, little things like that I think really make a difference.
I really like, Adriana, what you said about the speculative fiction, because I think it shows also that there are so many different angles from which you can approach technology, right? That it's not necessarily just sitting in front of a computer and coding, but it could be something embedded in literature. It could be something almost, like you said, to speculate about, to create scenarios. And I think that's great. And also the way how you described it, I think it makes a lot of sense. And it's also quite appealing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I love to read, and it was a class that I really enjoyed, and it highlighted something about tech that I thought was very important. So yeah, I really, I really like that class.
And does this kind of result into further plans or projects you'd like to do in your studies regarding tech? I mean, you already mentioned your web page programming you did successfully, but is there anything else, so to speak, in the pipeline for you which you would like to try out or what you're interested in?
I mean, I'm not sure right now, but definitely using technology to help create more sustainable goals. I think like that is something that I would really like to explore, something I'd really like to do. If things continue the way they are, if, climate change is a very important issue, and if things continue the way they are, we might not have a future. So I think I think that's something that I'm really interested in getting more involved in.
Well, This sounds cool. I mean, you're studying at Brooklyn College, right? And I think it's a liberal arts college, if I recall it correctly. I think there were even some kind of European scholars which have been like Hannah Arendt, so it's a quite famous organization you are linked with. And I hope they're supporting these kind of thoughts. Are they? Yes, they are, right?
Yes, yeah, Brooklyn College is more on the liberal side, which is why I'm considering other options. I'm not really sure. I'm still exploring. They definitely think it's important to be conscious of, climate change and climate change impacts and ways we can combat those things.
Okay. That sounds really cool. Good, good. So exciting projects ahead of you. Still, if I understand you correctly, still a bit kind of thinking, is this the right thing for me or this one? And I think that's absolutely important also to think about options and not kind of to put yourself, you're so young, right, at this stage in your life already into a certain box. I think it's great that you're so open from kind of this, yeah, a speculative fiction through web design, through doing internships with the UN. I think that's amazing. What the kind of interest you have in so many different topics, which hopefully allows you then at one point in life to find the right career path for you.
Yeah, it's really good to hear that from someone like you, that you have a lot of experience and you've already decided. I mean, you already know what you're doing.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's why I love technology because it's so innovative, progressive, and very versatile. And there's like so many things, and especially I want to be a part of an organization that makes an impact. And I think that tech is definitely the way to go to do that. Now, I want to ask you, what do you like best about your job in technology?
I would say it's the interdisciplinarity. That's for me the key thing, because I think you already mentioned it. Technology, or I would say a certain understanding and background in technology allows to tap into so many things, and also the other way around. I think it's also when you're working for a tech company and getting exposed to technology, you suddenly have a chance to get a more holistic picture. And I think it's being able to look here and there behind the surface to understand technology better, or to understand the underlying technology better, to be more precise. And hopefully, this allows me to make more informed and better decisions. And just to give you an example, very often when you look at decisions made on executive level, they have to deal in today's time with technology. However, and I did that, I tried that several times. If you ask people in these senior decision making positions, and not necessarily the chief information officer, he or she should know that, but other board members, and you ask them, how many AI coding languages do you know? It's getting very thin, and which is understandable because AI is still, I would say, an emerging topic, and not too many people have learned coding it. However, by understanding at least the concept of coding allows me, of course, to understand a bit better what's in that black box, so I can ask different questions. I probably also have a different interest in technology, being able to assess different solutions slightly better. And for example, another typical topic would be, you mentioned I worked for UI, and I worked quite a bit in the oil and gas, natural resources, renewables sector. And of course, very often you have to deal with trading. So you trade a product, and there's a marketplace, a stock market, or a trading house, however you want to trade that. Now, you can ask a typical data scientist to develop a trading algorithm, and they will model everything you want, which can be good, right? But on the other hand side, you might develop something which is not necessarily fit for purpose for the entire supply chain. And this is where I can perhaps add a bit of value by knowing both pieces. I have an in-depth understanding about supply chains in those sectors, which also means I can give a much better judgment. Do I trade too much through that platform, or do I have to put things aside through a governance structure, which allows me to maintain my value chain to not only sell sell some oil and gas, but also to sell later on some chemicals which will not go into that trading platform. So I can help the modelers to get into this. And I would say without that understanding of modeling, I wouldn't be in a position to do that. So I feel comfortable enough to sit together with a modeler to look at the model and kind of assess it. Is it really fit for purpose for the problem I want to solve with this? I know I've got now quite into some technicalities, but I think that's a good example. And I could continue with that for the next half hour or even hour. I think there are multiple things. So I'm not sitting in front of a computer and modeling, and I wouldn't be able to model a proper risk return model as of today. They are far better people for this. However, I'm still in a position to look at those models and to see what's behind it, to challenge it, and to really make sure it's fit for purpose. So I think that's what intrigues me about my job and about the technology element in it.
No, I think that's really great, and I really want to get to that point, or I want to be in that position where I'm able to use my background to make decisions like that. Like you said, you're not always in front of a computer, but you definitely are in the decision making, and I want to be able to be involved in something like that and something related to sustainability.
Yeah,
So
and you can even get into arts through this, right? So there are no limitations that it always has to be. You can't, with the typical big corporate. I think there are so many different ways how you can use technology, or how technology understanding enables you to carry out different things. Even in the fashion business, you have some fashion designers which now do their designs and even their clothes entirely through technology, which I find mind-boggling.
yeah, I think I think it's really amazing all the ways that someone can get involved with that. Which leads me to my next question. As I introduced earlier, you regularly give lectures on AI and CDG related topics, and I just wanted to know, what led you to your interest in AI.
Definitely my role within the UN with ITU. Through that, I suddenly thrown into AI, so to speak, and it fascinated me so much that I would say within a very short amount of time, I decided to really get into this. And then, of course, since sustainability has been, so to speak, on top of my core competencies for about 25, 30 years, that was almost a natural combination.
Okay. And alongside that, what lesson did you learn along the way that you'd like to share?
I think not to be afraid of technology. In the end, it's not that complicated, and it's logic. And also, I found it usually quite fair. So if you do something in the ICT area, it's quite simple. You get a direct feedback. It works or it doesn't work. At university, it's clear you either have the logic in your algorithm or not, or in whatever kind of math exercise you do. So I felt it also quite fair to me personally. But again, I think what I think is important, that it's logical and not, I'm repeating myself, but don't be afraid of it. Just give it a try and don't shy away if it doesn't work for the first time. And yeah, that's it. You asking me that, I would have a question, of course, for you. Uh, do you have anything in mind for young women when we think about technology, or even older ones in technology? So, is there anything you would like to share from your perspective? What is important to you?
I mean, what you said was really assuring, to not be scared of getting into tech. And I'd say that that's something I definitely would love to share with young women, because I was very doubtful of my own skills, whether I'd be able to do create the website. And I think finding the right place, like Breakthrough Tech, is a really good option. And involving yourself with a very supportive community is the best thing. And I would say, don't be afraid of just diving in, and just starting, because everyone starts somewhere, and you just have to build your experience and build your knowledge little by little, and just take one day at a time.
Sounds reasonable. Thank you. So what else? Do you have any further questions for me?
Yes. So I did want to ask, what's a challenge you encountered along the way, and how did you overcome it?
All right. Starting with university. Originally, I wanted to study physics, and I had this wild idea of getting into quantum physics. So I had one of these informative sessions at the university, and that introductory meeting was terrible. It terrified me. So I was definitely the only woman in the room, and I did not only feel exotic, I felt like I was an alien in that group. And the professors gave me that impression, kind of, what is she doing here? And that meeting really, really scared me. So that I thought, I'm never ever going to do this, not within this environment. And I ran to my physics teacher, and he was an amazing guy. And he kind of, first of all, he listened to me. So the first thing I did was I ran away. And he asked me how to go about this challenge. I sought advice, and I was lucky to have that physics teacher who was listening to me and who was trying to find a solution for me. And that solution was, he pointed me to a university which had exactly that mathematical economics kind of school in there, where he thought that I could bring in my interest in math, in economics, in logical thinking, but not getting into this atmosphere there. So that was definitely how I overcame that challenge. It was a strong pushback for me, but on the other hand side, it helped me to stay in that field, but kind of in a different way. And I would say another challenge was potentially, I'm the first generation in my family having an academic education. So there was literally no one at home who would be able to help me with certain questions and helping me with some guidance and things like that. So I had to figure out a lot of those things by myself. And I think that was sometimes a very hard lesson. So how did I overcome that? I think literally by not giving up and probably having quite a bit stamina to go through things. So I would say these were probably two big challenges. And the third one is almost anecdotal, is I was working with colleagues over a number of weeks on a big project assignment, and which had some very strategic elements in it. And I would say it had a certain intellectual complexity. Anyhow, after I think 4 weeks of very intensive work together, we were having a joint dinner afterwards, etc., etc. And the colleague with whom I was basically working with for hours kind of then asked me coincidentally about my background, because he was so surprised that I kind of really tapped into these very technological things in there, etc., etc. And I said, yeah, no, I have a PhD in economics with a focus on math, econometrics, operations research. And he was going pale and said, oh, I thought you were HR. And I found it hilarious, because I think it's that perspective that a woman is put sometimes almost automatically in that box. And of course, not all men do that, but it did not only happen once to me. And now I'm getting used to it. I hope, Adriana, for you and your generation, it's getting better. And yeah, it also kind of, you go to a computer store and you want to buy a new computer, and the nice person standing behind the counter will start with the very basic questions, and they ask them very slowly and kind of very careful. And then say, you know what, actually, kind of just that, the spectrum we're talking about, I want to run Python on it. So it should have this and this and this. And it's like you're turning a switch, and they go, oh my God, yeah, that's cool. They changed the entire language. And it's amazing to see that, because I think there's still, I wouldn't call it prejudice, but there's still a certain perspective when a woman comes in, that there's the basic assumptions, this is kind of more a regular device, but not necessarily a work tool. So this is not necessarily a challenge, but I think it shows a little bit the environment. Yeah, I'm sometimes operating, I was operating in, and it's definitely changed and improved quite a bit over the last years, I must say. So, of course, not all men do that. Definitely not. So, yeah, that's to the question regarding challenges and how to overcome them.
Um, I think you're definitely right. I think women are still a minority in the tech industry. And I think that those assumptions are still there. And I think that it's something that's still going to, I think it's a challenge I'm still going to be faced with. I mean, in my, I have taken, computer science course, and I would have to say that there might have been like maybe me and myself and one other girl in the class, and like the rest were all, guys and men. So I would say that it's definitely something that is slowly but surely changing, but is still an issue. Which is why I love being a part of this interview series, because it gets to highlight your achievements and my soon-to-be journey into the industry, which is really really amazing. Um,
A compliment. Thank you.
so I did want to ask, what career advice would you have for girls and young women in tech?
But let me start probably with a real life example. Um, I had a young lady working for me at EY, and she studied math and at a good university. And I would say she's probably one of the smartest people I met in my life. Absolutely intelligent. At the same time, big interest in liberal arts, like you, in sports. So I would say someone who was multi-talented, but she had a substantial, heavy load background in math, including coding. And I did with her one of the most successful projects in my life. And I had a kind of great moment with her in a project situation, and she was still kind of at quite junior level, where she literally educated. I literally mean education in the sense of providing heavy loaded content to a senior executive about a kind of quite mathematically a problem in the financial area. So we're talking about the executive who was a CFO. Yeah. And she did it in such an elegant way, and she used such a brilliant language that this gentleman, at least twice as old as her, had no other chance but listening to her because she trusted her skills. She absolutely knew what she was doing. And I think this is potentially a career advice. If you feel that you know something and that you can prove it. So it's not only having an opinion, it's kind of you have an opinion, but you can prove it and you can showcase this. To trust it and don't shy away from it. And by the way, she is on a stunning career path, a literally stunning career path. But I think what made her succeed in that situation and now also being successful is that she has that great, I would say, knowledge in math and coding, which gives her such a strong background. And I think when it comes to career, everything which you have digested in your brain or in your heart and soul and brain, Adriana, no one can take that from you. Someone can take your car from you. Someone can take a title from you. But what you have learned in life cannot be taken away from you. And realizing this, I think, is an incredible asset. So I think that's definitely one advice which goes beyond technology. But if you have also some skills in technology, like Adriana, you already mentioned something. You got into like your first coding experience, and you described earlier on in our conversation, our chat, that you suddenly realize, wow, I can do it. Now, just imagine if you professionalize that skill. And even if it's a small one, you can build upon that. I think that's brilliant. And this combined being open-minded, asking questions, not being afraid to ask questions, because that allows you to get better and to literally take in good ideas, good advice, but also to challenge what you hear. This can definitely be helpful in any career, whether it's in this tech sector or not. But Adriana, what I'm really keen on asking you, because I think it's important also for me to understand this in the phase of career I am in, is what are the biggest concerns, hurdles you face? And in a broader sense, in getting into technology, trying things out, and in kind of starting your educational journey and later on starting your career journey. What would be really useful for yourself, but also for other young women who are already sure getting into technology, but who might also be not interested in technology that much or don't even know whether this is the right thing to do? Is there anything you think society or people like me or universities, employers, government, the public as such could do better, which would help? What would help you? Is there anything? I mean, it's a broad question, but I'm really keen to hear what you think is missing or what's not done well.
I think increasing visibility is definitely a very, very important step in helping, younger women like me get into the industry, which again is why I'm really happy to be, here with you today. I think that's a very important part of it. And I guess more reaching out. Like I think, reaching out to, lots of um, organizations that are focused on helping young girls in tech careers. Like there's like I think there's Black Girls Who Code, Technovation, like a lot. Maybe uh, successful women later in their career reaching out to those types of organizations and getting in contact with women, and because I think a large part of being successful is networking, and I think learning from other people's experiences. So I think that's a really good part of it.
Do you feel enough encouraged to try things out, or are there certain initiatives? I mean, you mentioned this one, which I think is a great initiative, but do you think there should be more of it? Um, because I still feel there's very often, when I talk to young women like yourself, this kind of, you might excuse if I say, shyness. Can I really do this? And I'm wondering, what can we as a society do to kind of make it less, not frightening isn't the right word, but to make it more attractive. I think, yeah, that's the better word. To make it more attractive, to make it less kind of black box thingy.
I mean, again, I think speaking with people who older women who are already successful, I mean, has really been helping me. I mean, I'm not sure I'm the best person to ask because I'm very timid, very shy. I really struggle with that. I think that's a personal thing for me that I really need to work on. Speaking out and being confident, and being able to talk with people. I think that's a skill that I need to work on. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would say that I am encouraged, like, by my mom. My mom is a very big encouragement to me, in telling me, I can do that, I can do this. But again, not everyone has that. So I would say just trying to surround yourself with encouraging people.
Adriana, I think you've mentioned a couple of really good things by finding the right environment, like what you mentioned about families, potentially friends. And also, I think it's an encouragement for the UN to hear that these interviews are helpful. And honestly, Adriana, I think being shy is not a bad thing at all. You see, my cat, she's normally a very shy personality, but even she sometimes shows up. So I think, yeah, it's a personality trait, and don't change your personality because it's wonderful.
Thank you. That's really reassuring. Um, I think that wraps up for our session today for Talking Tech Women and Girls in ICT. And I just really want to thank you so much for speaking with me today. And I want to thank everyone who is watching the video.
Adriana, thank you so much for inviting me to this. It has been a great honor and pleasure. And I hope we stay in touch. It would be lovely to, yeah, connect regularly. And if you have any questions, if anything I can be of help, please let me know. You have my contact details, and I look forward to hearing from you. And good luck. Bye.